Hey there, everybody. It's Dan, and welcome back to a long awaited episode of Dan for POTUS. Now, I know some people out there think this whole thing's nutty, but I think it's possible that we can restore the Constitution to its original form if we put the right referee in charge of all those children that we seem to continually elect and have elected for the last 168 years. Can you even imagine that? For 168 years, we have continually repeated the same mistake and somehow expected different results, which seems, really, really crazy because we're not getting those different results. So, in this last week, our former president, the beloved or the despised, the sassy and the disguised, the one who managed to make just about everybody mad here and there and take the mad people and make them glad and take the glad people and make them sad. And anyway, the country did seem to run a bit better when he was president. I will say that, you can't really get away from that, but they decided to indict him. And so we have to resort back to the Constitution of the United States in order to try to understand what people call it, the militarization of the law, the Department of Justice, all these different things. You know what it is? It's just they're running out of tools. They're running out of tools. And as they implode on each other, because there's two sides, as they are both communist, we'll get to that in a second, and I don't mean communist like Marxism. I mean that they have the same mentality on both sides, and both of them have a totalitarian approach. And what we got to ask ourselves is, how does this weigh against the preamble of the Constitution? So it does, and right now we're speaking in reference to the indictment of former President Donald J. Trump, but that's not the only thing that we are referencing. We're referencing you and me. We're referencing you and me. And many of you don't know, and you may judge me. I'm going to put it out there, but I'm the convicted felon that's running for president. I got in trouble for something I did, in fact, do. And I took responsibility for it over a decade ago. And I did a little bit of time in the federal prison system. There's a lot of ironies there because the federal prison system actually exposed me to ideas and thoughts that, well, what's odd, what's odd is that our politicians don't go by them. And anyway, so we go back to the preamble. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish the very first one, justice. And if we're going to sit back and listen to someone say that, nobody's above the law, can we all just can we all just kind of laugh at that? Because that's ridiculous. You and I aren't above the law for sure. But even then, there's budgets. There's things that people get away with just because there's not enough money to prosecute them. There's things that go on just because the right people are doing it. There's industries that have special exceptions for the way that they operate. And the way that that works is they just give all the stuff that would be illegal for you and I to do, and they give it different names. And when they call it something different, that means it is something different, even though all the behavior is exactly the same. So it doesn't matter, though. We don't get into that. Well, maybe it does matter. And that's why I'm running for president, because it does matter. It does matter that we, the people, in order to form a more perfect union, want to establish justice. Justice. We live by the rule of law. Now, there's a great book out there called Three Felonies in a Day. And if you've never heard of Three Felonies in a Day, it's an old book. And, but what it basically says is that it's impossible for people to get through life without, in essence, committing three felony acts a day. And it's by a guy named Harvey Silverglate. Harvey Silverglate wrote this book, and it reveals how federal and criminal laws have become dangerously disconnected from the English common law tradition and how prosecutors can pin arguable federal crimes on any one of us. Any one of us, including me. I wasn't convicted by a law that was passed by the Congress and, looked at by the Senate, and then the president signed it. No, no, no. There's this little thing out there called the Federal Register. And what happened to me and happens to dozens and dozens of people, it's the primary place where something where you could be put in jail for, a place where this actually is almost surely true in your life. It's this place that a lot of people don't know about. It's this thing, this tool that people that we do not elect use in order to pass laws. Yeah, they're going to call it something different. Hey, Dan, if we call it a rule, it's a law. It's a law. And what they do is they take a law as it exists and they add rules to it. And there's a thing called the congressional review, but it's basically nothing. There is no real congressional review. So when they do this, when the Drug Enforcement Administration did it, for instance, with me, they just publish in there that they're adding a substance to the Controlled Substance Act. And then what they do is they wait 30 days and bam, it's a part of the Controlled Substance Act. And it doesn't matter if it's water. They can do this. All they got to do is decide or demonstrate by, I don't know, by their own opinion that there's a substantial risk to whatever the compound is. Now, what we were doing definitely did that, and it definitely qualified. I'm just using that as an example to outline that this is how it goes down. In a lot of ways, it's dysfunctional, and all the regulations of government fall here. When Nancy Pelosi said we have to pass Obamacare to know what's in it, people got all upset. But it turns out that that's true, because the bureaucracy, the administrative part of the bureaucracy, will then take that law and try to weave it through all the other existing laws and rules and create what the law actually is. And that can take months. And it's called the Federal Register. You can go to federalregister.gov and look. And if you go and look, you'll see that hundreds of things get added to the Federal Register every day, and some of those hundreds of things become laws. The emergency action capability, the delegated power of the president, goes down to the administrators of the different branches of government, such as the Department of Justice. And then the Department of Justice, and I just don't think they should be allowed to use the Federal Register, right? The Department of Justice ought not to be doing this. But the Department of Justice comes along, and they use it, right? They use it. And the Department of Justice can kind of make a law about anything and put it in the Federal Register and then come and get you. And what Harvey said was how prosecutors can pin arguable federal crimes on any one of us for even the most seemingly innocuous behavior. And they can actually make it criminal by adding those things to the Federal Register. So there's a couple of things that old Dan for POTUS would suggest that we do. And one of them is to remove the power of publication in the Federal Register from the Department of Justice. Unfortunately, that would mean some things that they really need to do that are emergency actions would require the vote of the Senate and the Congress and the signature of hopefully me, because I will actually enforce that Constitution over whatever they present. Even so, we don't need the police unilaterally making the laws. And when you start seeing this thing get politicized like this, my concern is that these things, that for even the most seemingly innocuous behavior, you and I could find ourselves in a world of trouble. And we don't want that to happen. We don't want that to happen. So it's just something to think about. The Federal Register, it's not an evil thing. It just is a thing that most of us don't know about, and we don't recognize how things get in there. The other thing I would like to point out is that, being a candidate that's for you, and I'm not running against anybody. I don't have $4,000 trillion, and I didn't meet with the mega donors. If I'd met with the mega donors, well, I'd do whatever the heck they told me to do too. No, I wouldn't. That's why I didn't meet with the mega donors. If you just want a regular guy for president, You just want somebody that can actually do the job because we understand, or I understand, and the people I'll bring on board will understand, and the things of life aren't too hard to understand. And that is that we want to be a better place, a more perfect union, and we want to establish justice and ensure domestic tranquility. All right, so that's the next one. As we look at what's going on with Donald J. Trump, do you think that that's ensuring domestic tranquility? Do you think that the effort of the prosecutor in New York is somehow or another helping with domestic tranquility? Or do you think that juxtaposition, the assigning of sides, the tension is intentionally vilified on purpose? I mean, you think about all the different things and the riots and those type of things that have gone on. You have to wonder if it's not just another political move to create tension in our country, because it would almost seem like, the name of there was a circus called Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, and P.T. Barnum said, "I don't care what you write about me. Just spell my name correctly." And I think old Donald J. Trump thinks exactly that same way. I mean, he's a relatively resilient human being. You got to admit that. And there's been some things about him that rub me wrong too, but he's a lot tougher than Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer, who just fold, cry, oh my God, those things, they stand to reckon something. And if all of them can just keep the fight on, it doesn't matter who in a mixed martial arts fight, in an MMA fight that you're for, right? It doesn't matter who you're for. So long as there's an opponent, the one you're for them. And you got to have that opponent. And if we can just keep everybody divided and have a villain and have a superhero, and the government is the superhero in this case, and the former president is the villain, and we can play out that Marvel script one more time. It's like Trump started to fade from the news, and his popularity started to fade a little bit too. And I don't know that. It just seems that way. And so this comes along, and wham, everybody's talking about Trump again. And we return right to the news cycles all about Donald Trump. What is that worth? I mean, it seems like when I want to get a news story in the news, because I do like disaster relief and things like that, and I need some help with that. And it's really, truly going to help people, because that's the goal. It's to get out there, and I don't care what walk of life you are. I don't care where you're from or what you believe or how you work. Who the heck cares? Just like that storm or that earthquake, that fire didn't care. I don't care. I care in that. I have the same amount of care for who you are, who you think you are, how much money you have, who your daddy is, what you think you ought to be called. I don't care. I don't care. It doesn't make any difference to me, because I call you an American. And it seems like they want to keep that tension amongst all those other things. And one of the best ways to do that is to keep a fight up at that Marvel style fight, And they're not going to do anything. My prediction of it is this, and I don't know anything more, and you probably know a lot less. I don't participate in the news cycles or scan everything. I don't know what the right talking points are. I don't care. You know what I care about? What you think. I care about your talking points. I care what you want. I care about giving you the chance. And I care about domestic tranquility. I care a lot about that. And I don't understand why you and I keep voting people in that want to go directly against that. So establishing justice, well, would seem to me to be an entire political thing. All of them are felons, just like 3 felonies a day says the most innocuous of things. So I think if the Department of Justice wanted to apply itself to any congressman, any senator, any Supreme Court justice, any administrator, any head of anything, who knows? They could probably fall to that very same thing. And consequently, that there's no equality in justice. The idea that somehow this is equal in justice is crazy, because I can remember senators standing outside screaming that we should get in like some sort of fight. I remember Maxine Waters telling people to call people out in the restaurants and stuff. I mean, holy cow. Anyway, it's not there. What you and I got to accept is that we have to have a referee for president. And if we hire the coach of one of these teams to be president, because Donald Trump, running as a Republican, is the head of the Republican Party, Yeah, that's how it works. So we would be hiring the coach as the referee, as the constitutional referee, and we don't want to do that. We have to step away from it. And I know so many of my fellow Americans from every walk of life, and we probably disagree on a whole lot of stuff, and maybe we agree on a whole lot of stuff. Who knows? But I know that you don't want the coach of the other team or the coach of your team. I think you recognize the impossibility of fairness or this other idea that they are to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, that the people that our children, that they're to do that. I know that they're not promoting the general welfare of you and me. We all know this. So it's got to be somebody who's not on the team. Somebody who's not on the team. And if you're just listening to this audio, I'm pointing at myself. I'm not on any of their teams. I don't want to be on their team. Pick me last. Pick me last. I don't want to be on any of their teams, and I don't think you should either. It's not that the teams themselves are bad, but ultimately they're all communistic, meaning this. If we go to the etymology of the word, etymology of communist, if we go to the etymology of communist, we find that it derives from the French communisme, which developed out of the Latin roots communis and the suffix ismi. Semantically, communist can be translated to of or for the community. Right now, both parties argue that they are of or for the community, that either vote for them or it's the end of the world and the America that you know is finished. And I think that's happening, and it doesn't seem to matter what party we vote in. So, of or for the community is their tactic. And while isme, ISME, is a suffix that indicates the abstraction into a state, condition, action, or doctrine. So, with Karl Marx, it was a communist doctrine. In this case, it's communist actions. And either party is a communist. In other words, they all get together in a communal way, right? They create the Republican community. It's one of those things that really get under some people's skin, right? You hear there's this community and that community is. They're just super divisive types of ideas, as if I can't be a part of that community because I don't have the cool shoes or whatever it is, right? I know that's not true, but some people do look at it that way. And we are actually of a very great community, a much bigger community, a community above all communities relative to the day that you go to the voting machine, and that is the American community. And if you can be a part of the American community, especially that day that you go to the voting machine, perhaps you will put somebody in the presidential office that is not a communism, a communist, somebody who's like, oh, well, you got to join my Republican community because if you join my Republican community, everything in life will be good. Or, hey, why don't you join the Democrat community because my Democrat community is going to make everything just right. I got your back. I got your back. They always say, I got your back. And it's just a bunch of junk. They don't have your back, my back. It's ridiculous. Are you tired of it? Are you tired of it? I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. That's why this entire campaign, the Dan for POTUS, tries to fly in the face of all of it. And I hope you share this podcast and tell your friends. Get as many people to sign up to this podcast as you can. It's not a campaign contribution. If you sign up to support this podcast, just 50 cents a month, doesn't even cover the phone bill that I'm filming on, right? It's just 50 cents a month. And if you sign up to do this podcast with me, we can keep talking about we the people of the United States in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense. That's everybody. Everybody who under the American umbrella, common defense, and promote the general welfare. I hope everybody does okay. Why does anybody have to suffer horribly? In our country, we don't. We just have this really outrageous standard because we see people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and we think we're supposed to function at that level. And most of us, well, we don't, including me, right? We just don't. That doesn't mean we can't have a very, very good life. And we want to promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, our our kids to ordain and establish this Constitution. And that Constitution that we ordained and we made holy, that we hold in reverence, that we refer to as if it is the final authority in what we got going on. If you want that back, then you're going to consider, at least for a second, the Dan Danforth POTUS concepts. Whether you write Daniel Francis in as a candidate, you can do that. I hope you do that. That would be fantastic. Or if you find somebody else, so long as they don't have a D or an R on their name, things will be fine. But if they have those things on their name, keep them in the people's house, the Congress, and keep them in the state house, the Senate. Keep them there. Because what we're trying to go after isn't like the abolishing of the parties, though they really don't have any place in the history of our country. 168 years they've been doing the wrong thing. That's right. Thank you. I'm glad you guys think like I think. In any case, we're not trying to abolish them. We're not going to do that. It's an unreasonable goal. We're trying to get one guy, just one in the mix. That's the referee, because the oath of office for the President of the United States matters. And when you take that oath of office, when I take that oath of office, perhaps, I'll take that oath of office. I'll tell you, I'll take it. But let me read it to you, because this is what they promised to do. I do solemnly swear or affirm, if you're like afraid of the God idea, good grief, scared of words, have to take a stand on a stinking word. Lord. Anyway, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability. Are you guys ready for this? Ask yourself, is this going on? Is our president, Congress, and Senate doing this? Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. I tell you, all they do is attack it. It's why we're not running against anybody. It's just a different game I'm bringing to the table. If we all get together and we're playing like in the National Hockey League and we're all getting out there and every once in a while we get good fights, hockey is a good example for that reason, right? People go to see the fights, and our politics is basically that same thing. But if we just step out of that league and we just play a different game, give me the very best hockey team, and let's put them up against the very best high school women's softball team and watch them lose. It won't matter how incredible athletes they are or any of that. Them ladies will walk them all over that field like nobody's business. You ever get a chance, watch the College Softball World Series. Amazing athletes. I mean, it's really a mind-blowing, fast-moving game. It's fantastic. And I want to do that too. I think we can do that too. Because this is we the people. I'm just a people. I'm not even the peoples or anything like that. I'm just one people, right? It's we the people, you and me. And I don't have any particular opinions other than this, that I am going to uphold the Constitution, or I want to see somebody do that, to establish tranquility. Oh my gosh, ensure it. To establish justice, to establish a common defense, to establish a general welfare. That's what I want to do. I want to figure out how we do that. And I just don't think it's that common, because all of you guys are loaded with incredible ideas, and all of you guys want to be heard. You're not heard. You go and you hit and you're like, okay, how am I going to vote here? I'm going to hit the screens. We don't know if that thing's working right. Don't you want to know? I want to know. So join me in this. Subscribe to the podcast, hit the like button, do whatever you got to do. It's 50 cents. 50 cents. That's all I'm trying to get. 50 cents. And if I could get, 100,000 of us on this board, we at least would have a voice here. And we could talk about the things that really matter. And when we encounter people that are dedicated to a party, we can see that they're just trying to be a part of the community that they want to impose upon the state. And that would be the very root of the word of communists. Totalitarianism, our way or the highway. Are you tired of the protests? Are you tired of people coming out and just saying what they want to say? Because I'm all about protesting so long as it's peaceful. I'm all about debate. God, I love it. I love debate. I would love to sit down and debate some of these folks. I don't even think they're good at it. They're so vulnerable. In any case, I do believe that you and I can sit back and say, we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, and walk away from the carnival of crap that is about to come all over our country as we go from one indictment to another indictment to another indictment amongst those little spoiled children that we keep giving great jobs to for no particular reason, and they're not even good at their jobs. Yeah. If they were working for you at Burger King, you'd fire them. They were working for you in your construction company, you'd have to fire them. Imagine having a worker that everybody doesn't agree with them. They could create some sort of argument with. Imagine them calling protests because I guess some people do that, don't they? Some people do that. So maybe that's not the best thing. I love the idea of protest. It must be peaceful. I love the idea of diversity so long as we're doing it under American. So long as we're American. Otherwise, there's a demon in that diversity, and we got to watch out for that. And I love the Constitution of the United States. And I don't think it's an outdated document. I think it's a very fair and just document so long as we get rid of all the subcategories, adjectives, words, what you want to call yourself, all these different conditional things that want to put one person over another, or let's deal with it right. Put one person below another, below them, that act like you can't earn your own way because you're some race or you got some sort of thing going on. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I came from a really difficult life that I imposed upon myself, that I did to myself. And I had to find my way out. And I couldn't do that alone. And the way I found my way out had all kinds of people involved. And the way I found my way out required each and every one of you to do your thing every day. So I would have that opportunity that Americans put forth. And if you want to continue to do that, you will have to, by necessity, step away from the communism parties. Communist parties, the common idea that if you just vote for me, everything will be okay. And quit fighting with your friends and quit fighting with people and say, hey, let's do something different. Let's get a referee in there for president. Let's get somebody in there that's just going to be yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. Is it constitutional or not? And when we all disagree, we'll toss it off to the Supreme Court and we'll see what they have to say, because that's how it's supposed to work and that's how it was designed. Well, thank you guys for listening. Those are my comments on the Donald J. Trump indictment. And I hope, and I really hope, that we can all just watch this spectacle as if it were, some sort of minor league hockey game, right? And watch these guys fight it out. All the while recognizing their goal is to divide you and me. Their goal is to grandstand and occupy the news cycle. Their goal is to do things that you and I don't know about through that Federal Register. And we need to watch each other's back, especially those we disagree with, to be sure that we don't get divided amongst ourselves. That whole idea of divide and conquer is hot in play, I think. And you got to be real careful. Real careful with believing anything that's coming from any source of media. Any of it. Be really careful. If you don't know it for your own experience, don't bother with it. Anyway, Dan, this is Daniel Francis. I am running for President of the United States, and I hope you enjoyed this podcast. And whether you agree with me or not, you are welcome inside of my world. You are welcome inside of what we're trying to achieve. And my goal as President of the United States will be to get you the things that you need in order to live your life the way you see to do it, because it's you that's got to do it. And I can't think of any other better way. Let's keep it to the Constitution, folks, and let's forget about all the tyranny that we're dealing with today. Please sign up for the podcast. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the YouTube like button. Wherever you saw this, make sure you subscribe. And remember, on Spotify, if you'll please go to Spotify, you can sign up and subscribe to this for 50 cents a month and listen to me rant and rave about all the things that are right about this world. And the main thing we got right was we got our Constitution in our hand, and we have an opportunity to put it to work again. Thank you guys for listening.